Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition, a post-game podcast edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius on a victory Sunday night as the Bucs improved to 2-0 after a 48-25 victory over the visiting Atlanta Falcons. That was a lot closer than it sounds like it was, Scott. We were hanging on for dear life there at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and then a couple of Mike Edwards pick sixes salt that one away. Whew, what off the top of your head, Scott? What are your key observations as we close this one out with the post-game podcast?
Well, it was ugly in the middle. It was really good at the beginning and really good at the end, right? So it was like a sandwich of a game, but the bread was better than the meat. So it's a curious thing. I was going back to look, and you know what, John? If you go back and look at last year's Week 17 game against the Falcons, right? That was a 44-27 game. That was not unlike this game here, right? 44-27 was the Week 17 score. 48-25 was the score this year. Brady had 4 touchdowns in that game. Brady had 5 in this game. At one point in that game, it was 23-20 at the end of the third.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
They outscored the Falcons 21-7 in that game. It got to 28-25 in the third, and the Bucs poured it on the fourth quarter and won 21-0 in the fourth quarter. Now, a little bit of a different story, right? Because you had Mike Edwards as the unexpected hero in this game with 2 pick sixes, and boy, they really needed it because this pesky Atlanta team just would not go away. They were hanging around like some gnats, and finally the Buccaneers swatted them away. But we've seen now in 2 games, this Buccaneer defense is not anywhere close to where it was during the Super
end
Bowl.
of last season. They looked the same as they did from the regular season last year, right? Like carbon copy, identical to like last season, regular season.
Yeah, no doubt about
it. The playoffs, no version of the playoff because they changed what they did in the playoffs.
Right.
And it shocked people, and it was successful, especially the last 3 games of the playoffs, we should say.
Yeah.
But they look like the first 17 games of the year, Bucs defense, not the last 3.
And not just that, John, but the thing is thankfully this Bucs offense is picking up where it left off. And what I mean by that is we've talked about it for months now, dating back to last year. 30 points is the magic number for this Buccaneer team, especially offensively. They scored 48 points today. 14 of those came from the defense. So they still put up 30 points by themselves on the offensive side of the ball, 34 points. And they've now set the NFL record for 9 consecutive games with 30 points or more. And that's how this team's going to have to win. They're going to have to win high-scoring games until this defense can kind of come around. While the defense had pressure today, and I was impressed that they got some interceptions off that pressure, we're not seeing the sack numbers that I expected the Bucs to have.
Well, it's understandable in some ways, Scott, because Matt Ryan's such an elusive quarterback. It's just hard to bring down. It's.
I mean, it's. I don't want to say he's like Michael Vick, but there are some real similar.
They just transitioned from one great scrambling. It's just. But I mean, seriously, like we'll talk about positives too. But the inability to get Matt Ryan on the ground in this game was pretty embarrassing. Like, come on.
It was problematic for sure. And so to me, that's a big area of concern for mine because, listen, I'm all in favor of pressure, especially when it leads to takeaways, right? You saw Carlton Davis come with the blitz, get his hand up, tip a pass to Mike Evans for a pick. So I appreciate pressure. But the great thing about a sack is it guarantees a negative loss on a particular play. And sometimes if it happens on third down, it leads to a punt. So sacks are important in the game as well as pressures. And this defense is capable of doing it, but I didn't see enough one-on-one wins for the Bucs against what I thought was one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL last week, and they played a hell of a lot better than they did a week ago against Philly.
Yeah, for sure. And it continues to be passing attacks that keep the ball kind of underneath and pick apart the Bucs defense in that way. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Let's go with the offense first, though, Scott. We always like to, after the wins, start positive, and then we'll get to things that need cleaned up and fixed.
Well,
this offense,
John, it's almost like this offense is coming out guzzling a bunch of Celsius right off the bat because this Bucs offense, they went right down the field and looked incredibly proficient,
Yeah.
successful. They just manhandled the Falcons down the field really twice in the first 2 drives, if not for a stupid Ryan Jensen unnecessary roughness penalty. That listen, that to me was a deflator. That penalty killed the Bucs' momentum right there, and because it put them, instead of being at the 8-yard line, moved them back 15 yards, set up a 3rd and 20. And at that point in time, I know that Gatorade's on the sidelines. Maybe they got to put some Celsius on the sidelines, John, because not only does Celsius energize you, but it has no sugar, no preservatives, and it doesn't give you that crash. It seemed like the Bucs had a crash after that Ryan Jensen penalty, because we saw Donovan Smith give up a sack fumble to Dante Fowler, and to me, I think that was one of the kind of the turning points of this game. And if the Buccaneers or yourself want to find out where to get Celsius, you can go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, and type in your address. You'll have health and fitness stores, grocery stores, convenience stores pop up around you. Go try Celsius today. Once you find the flavors that you like, order it on Amazon, buy it in bulk, use the subscribe and save, and they'll ship it right to your house, and you'll save some money.
Right. Yeah. This is this has been a kind of a trend now with the Bucs, Scott, a little bit, is that we've got a team that can do no wrong except when they do it to themselves. And that we've talked about this ad nauseum. So I almost get a little bit frustrated that we've kind of got to come at this thing from the same angle, but there isn't, like, there's so little to complain about in terms of the two main things that denote offensive success: quarterback play and play calling, play design. I am so impressed with the way Byron Leftwich has started this season. Obviously impressed with the way Brady has started this season. Those two seem to be in sync. The offense can effectively pick you apart underneath, way better than they did last year. The big plays are still there. They have not lacking that at all. There's just really the only times this offense has struggled is execution stuff, not in terms of conceptually being confused or shut down or anything like that. We have not seen that yet in this game, in this season for the Bucs. So kudos and hats off to them for that. The execution at times could be better, but two of the most important factors for the Bucs' success this season seem to be working really well so far. And as a result, Brady is playing. It's hard to say that Brady has had obviously this unbelievable career, but we were talking about 2-game sample size. But in those 2 games, he's looked as good as he's ever looked in the NFL, in my opinion. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. He's making throws all over the field. He's making high degree of difficulty throws.
John, are you talking about his 9 touchdown passes in 2 games that have put him on pace to hit 76 touchdowns this year?
Yeah, and think about
That's
drops
crazy.
and a whiff from Rojo and pass protection today results in a sack. And obviously Donovan Smith gives up a sack. I think coverage had a little bit to do with that one too. But, he's not necessarily all the drops in the last game. Penalties in this game were a factor and an issue. You mentioned Ryan Jensen. There were other ones as the game went on as well, offensively, that set them back a little bit. And he's overcoming a lot right now. And obviously he's getting help. Great playmakers, and the Bucs certainly have a talented cast around him, no question. I still think Brady's doing a lot of heavy lifting for this team. Play calling is helping him. Last year, one of these 2 games would have been a loss because they would have asked so much of Brady before he even knew the offense fully.
Yes.
And they're getting away from that enough that they're scheming in some answers for him. Today was a lot of Brady making plays in the offense, but the play action game helped him so much. And so hats off to Byron Leftwich, because I think he called a great game. He was able to draw up a lot of great looks for Brady off play action, and they attacked the middle of the field relentlessly. Falcons wanted to drop 2 safeties back, and the Bucs just kind of picked them apart in the intermediate areas of the field.
You're right. Let's go to the stats, John, and take a look here. You've got the score 48-25. Buccaneers moved to 2-0. Tom Brady, 24-36, 276 yards, 5 touchdowns. You see Mike Evans, 5 catches, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really appeased the fantasy football owners out there that have Mike on their team. Rob Gronkowski, 4 catches, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then you've got Chris Godwin, 4 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. I was surprised that Antonio Brown didn't really go off today like I thought he would. I wrote about that in the SR's Fab 5. It didn't matter because the other 3 today, Evans, Gronkowski, and Godwin. And John, what we're seeing is from this offense is 3 out of the 4 guys have gone off in each of the first 2 games, right? It was AB, Godwin, and Gronkowski in the first game. And instead of AB. This week it was Mike Evans and Gronkowski and Godwin. But the interesting thing about Gronkowski with those touchdowns is he now is, I think he's tied for Ben Coates with the most games with consecutive 2 scores. So he's got 3 games in a row of 2 touchdowns dating back to the Super Bowl. That ties Ben Coates' record, and that sets a new Bucs record for the most games, consecutive games with 2 touchdowns by any player. So Rob Gronkowski absolutely getting it done to start the season. He loves playing at Raymond James Stadium, right?
Yeah, and how good does he look, Scott? Just outside of just the pure touchdown numbers, like he's last week, I mean, combat catches. He caught every target that was thrown his way. He was today lays out for the touchdown, a great catch in the end zone. He was targeted 5 times today. That incompletion at the end where Brady expected him to bend inside maybe a little bit, and he kept going vertical.
Right.
That was the only incompletion those two have had between them this year so far.
Yes.
I think 12 of 13 in terms of catches targets. Last year was Rob Gronkowski's worst catch percentage of any year of his career.
Yeah.
This year already off to a tremendous start in terms of reversing that. He just looks like he's moving great. He's catching the ball really well. After the catch, how many times? I mean, he's throwing guys aside, and he's hard to bring down.
Moving the chains.
Yes. Yeah, it's a difference maker right now for them.
It really is. When you're talking about difference makers on the defensive side, it starts and ends with Mike Edwards. I mean, 4 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. This is a player, John, that you and I have been campaigning for to get on the field. You have written columns about 3 safety looks, and because of the injury to Sean Murphy-Bunting, we saw people can call it a 3 safety look. Really, Mike Edwards was playing nickel corner today, especially in the second half, and he was playing it very well. And he had 2 interceptions to close out the scoring, back-to-back Falcons possessions. Sensational game. One thing that Bruce Arians said after the game was it's Jordan Whitehead's job, but there's no way Jordan Whitehead's going to play all those snaps when he hasn't practiced in 5 weeks.
Don't forget Jordan Whitehead. Play Mike Edwards at slot corner. Let Jordan Whitehead play the whole game. Play with 3 safeties. That's how you cannot go into this game against the Rams and put anybody in the nickel other than Mike Edwards for this game. It's coaching malpractice if you do anything else. They are one of the best teams from the slot in the entire league. You can't put Ross Cockrell in that situation. Yeah, come on. You're going to put Ross Cockrell in that situation all game long?
Absolutely not.
No. Mike Edwards can change a play in one game. He's shown that over and over and over again. He's played in the regular season, he's played barely 200 snaps over the last 2 seasons combined. And he's got 4 picks. One was taken away against the Raiders, but he's got 4 picks. He's got 2 pick six. Was it a pick 6 against the Packers, or did he bring it down to the 1? I can't remember.
It was close. Yeah.
I think it was in the 1 yard line. Anyway, he's
right into the red zone for sure.
He's got 5 picks, I should say. 2 today. He had 2 last year, and then a 5th that was taken away against the Raiders. He had a pick in the playoffs. He had a deflection that turned into an Antoine Winfield pick in the playoffs. He broke up a pass on the goal line from Aaron Rodgers at the end of a game. The guy per snap has got to be one of the most valuable players in the league. You have to play him more. I don't care if he goes out and gives up 200 yards on the slot. The process was still good. You put playmakers on the field. And any event, especially when you're decimated by injury, he's got to play. And if he doesn't go well, it doesn't go well.
Right.
But you can't ignore what he's done in terms of production.
No, you're exactly right. And it's also hard to ignore that the Buccaneers now have won 10 straight games dating back to last year. 10 straight games. That's pretty damn good. That's dominant.
Do you know when this started? Do you know what precursor happened before the Bucs winning streak started, Scott?
There was a bye week.
There was a bye week. Do you know what happened during the bye week? The Ledyard family moved to Tampa Bay.
That's right. It's not all Tom Brady, folks. It's John Ledyard too. He came down.
During that bye week.
Buccaneers are undefeated with John Ledyard as a Florida resident. That's a fact.
Look, I'm just saying. That's a fact. You cannot get away from the analytics, and the analytics show that 100% of the time when the Ledyard family is in Tampa Bay, the Bucs win.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Right.
That's
So
true.
you're setting yourself up though when they do lose, because this is not going to go on
That's
forever
true.
and ever.
That's right.
Then people are going to ask you to leave. So you're going
Yeah,
to
that's
say,
true.
please move
Like, all
away,
right.
and then come back and start a new
Hopefully they'll
streak.
give me a
So,
couple losses in a row before they're like, all right, get out of here, go back to
yeah,
Pennsylvania.
exactly.
But it's been a great start. It's been an encouraging start to the season in the areas that matter the most. Offensively, if we're staying there a little bit longer, I think the line is played well. I think they can play better. I think Donovan Smith has been mostly good. Obviously, he gave up the sack today, but that was a little bit coverage too. There was some elements to that, but I still think he could have done. Again, it's a better job. I think Tristan Wirfs and he both could do a better job than they've done so far. Interior, I have not had many issues at all. Those two guys can play better. I believe they will play better. They've been fine. I think they can be more locked down than they've been. A lot of people are attacking Kappa and Wirfs with stunts because I don't think they can beat at least Wirfs one-on-one. So they are trying to run games at them, and younger players that haven't played as much threaten the communication and that kind of stuff. They're mostly handling it. There's issues at times. That group can play better. The rest of the group, I mean, again, you mentioned it. If 3 of these 4 guys are going to go off every game, teams are going to have a tough time. The Bucs feel like they have more answers offensively when teams go too high, which bodes really well going into the Rams game. When teams go too high, here's how we're going to attack you. We're going to eat up the seams. We're going to get some things going in the intermediate areas of the field. We're going to use play action to pull the linebackers up and throw in that space in front of the safeties. It feels like they didn't have those early in the year last year. Now it feels like they have some answers. So I just feel like the process is way better offensively if the execution is always there. That brings me to this point, Scott. What do the Bucs do at running back? There's obviously not a desirable answer here amongst their top 2 guys. Just when you feel like just turn it over to Lenny, he's fumbling. He's missing the hole on 4th and short. Yeah. When he should be easy, it's right there, and he's putting his head down and not looking. And both of these guys are like can't get right. Like that's that's why they make me feel when I watch them play. Just when you're ready to buy into one, they screw it up. And we barely see sight or sound of Giovanni Bernard amidst all of it.
And it's crazy, right? And I'll tell you what, they might have to go to Giovanni Bernard by default because as of right now, Giovanni Bernard has not done anything wrong, at least we know of. Maybe he hasn't done enough right, but at some point in time, Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich are going to be tested by the gaffes of Rojo and Leonard Fournette, to where it's just going to become an inevitability. And I'm waiting for that day because I'd rather see it. Like, let's see what Giovanni Bernard can do with more opportunities to run the ball, with more opportunities in pass protection, to catch the ball, certainly, because that's his forte. Listen, Ronald Jones, to me, I don't want him to start the next game. All right, I don't know what's going on, but for this guy to catch the ball, not put his shoulder down, and
what was that?
That was sad. I was going to use another word, but I'm just going to use the word sad. Like, you're an NFL player, man. You when you first got to Tampa, I think you were 205. You beeped up to 220, 225. Throw your shoulder into the guy. I mean, it's like you didn't get the first down. They didn't get a first down because he didn't get the first down on the first down catch, right? And so there's that. He missed an easy hole. He whiffed on a block that got Brady's sacked. I mean, listen, this guy's in his contract here, and I don't know if he's thinking about this too much or what, but there is something not right with Rojo's game right now. And I understand playing Leonard Fournette more than Ronald Jones right now, because I don't want to say that Fournette's necessarily earned it, but he's done less wrong. Can we say that?
You're a guy that almost fumbled the game away today.
Yes.
He's done less wrong. And I don't even disagree with you. Yeah. Like, this guy literally, that recovery could have been anybody's ball. And we're talking about Leonard Fournette as the clown of this game.
Chris Godwin made a hero play on that play. That was
to knock it out of bounds.
Yep. You talk about stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. Listen, I appreciate all of 62 yards and 4 catches and the touchdown from Chris Godwin. That was probably the play of the game by Chris Godwin, if you ask me.
Yeah, because that was absolutely going to be recovered. That could have been scoop and score, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's down there in the Bucs territory too, so it's right there.
Right. Yeah, that was, and again, that's what I mean. Like, I don't disagree with you on Rojo at all. If anybody who watched the live in-game stream, I was fuming at Rojo's performance, especially on that drive where he inexplicably kept getting opportunities to be on the field, despite the fact that he would not run at someone for the first down or see the hole or anything. It was a very, very dismal performance by him on a night where he really needed a big game. But
yeah,
Fournette, I mean, he did run well early in the game, but he, again, 4 quarters with him is elusive. It is hard to kind of get him going for any length of time, and he's had plenty of issues as well. And I just think it's crazy if you are not playing Giovanni Bernard more in the next game. I know JK said Keyshawn Vaughn time. I don't necessarily think Keyshawn Vaughn is the answer either. If these guys are soundly beating him out, I'm not interested in going to Keyshawn Vaughn right now. But just play Giovanni Bernard more. It can't.
Well, you know what? And let's play JC Allen and Matt Matera more on this podcast, shall we? I'm going to bow out. I'm going to bow out and let those two carry on the conversation. I'll be back at the end of the show with my game balls.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for jumping out here, Scott. We got JC and Matt in the house here. Good to see you guys. Matt, let's start with you because I know that as you're there at Raymond James Stadium and checked in on the atmosphere for this game, you're going to have some thoughts and observations. But first, I know you want to give a shout out to our friends over at Living Golf Life and all the wonderful stuff that they can provide fans of the golf game.
I do. Living Golf Life. First of all, they're huge Bucs fans. I believe one of their co-founders, Mike, was at the game tonight, or this afternoon. So very excited for them. Living Golf Life it's a golf brand. It's a golf merchandise brand, but it's more than that. It's about a lifestyle. If you play golf, especially here in Florida, there's a ton of golfers. It's not necessarily about the all the swings that you have, because there's going to be a lot of bad ones. There's only going to be a couple of good ones. The main thing is that it's all about being in the outdoors, hanging out with your friends, having a good time, enjoying a cold one, and just embracing the entire lifestyle brand. So if you go to livinggolflife.com, they have excellent hats, polos, koozies, mugs, everything else in between. It's a great company. We're very happy that they are a proud sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Make sure you go to livinggolflife.com. Check out all their merchandise. It's great to have. I wear it at Bucs practice all the time. Super comfortable polos. I was wearing the Living Golf Life hat yesterday when I was watching some college football. Check it out, and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, such a fresh logo too.
Right. Yeah, that hat is definitely a favorite of mine. I'm a big fan of that Living Golf Life hat. All right, Matt, you watched this game. What was the vibe? I mean, you know that it's coming down crunch time and it's 28-10, and then all of a sudden it's 28-25, and you're like, here we go with this team again, letting everybody back in it. What were your thoughts and observations from the stadium?
Well, overall, I got to say, since I've been covering the Bucs, as far as home games, I believe 2019 was the first year I started going to every single home game. This was, from an entertainment aspect, was the most entertaining Bucs home game I have ever been to. Between Tom Brady tying the Bucs franchise record for 5 touchdowns, Mike Edwards, 2 pick sixes, was unbelievable. I run the Bucs Twitter, the Pewter Report account, their Twitter account when during the game's going on. And I don't think there's anything I enjoy more than when the Bucs get a turnover and I get to tweet out in all caps, pick or sack or anything like that. So the fact that it was Mike Edwards and it was Edwards again, it was truly incredible. The Bucs do fall into that situation sometimes where they go full pedal to the metal. They jump out to these leads, and then Bruce Arians said it in the postgame press conference. They start to relax a little bit. I mean, you would have thought that the way they started that second half, with Vita Vea tipping the pass, Shaq Barrett intercepts it, and then bam, you get Brady to Evans part 2. You would have thought the Bucs would have started running away with it right then and there because they already had the Falcons on the ropes, but unfortunately they let them get back into it. But again, I just think it shows the mettle of this team that when they really want to, they could just put the foot on the throats of anyone and just flip that switch. And it doesn't matter if it's Godwin or if it's Gronk, whoever it is, the defense making plays. It's so tough for other teams just to hang with them for 4 quarters. It doesn't matter. Even if you get close, the Bucs just pull away again and covered the spread. By the way, I went 6-7 today on all my bets. So
no big deal.
including a defensive touchdown, which is very difficult to get. I nailed that. So,
wow!
Shout out to my bookie.
Yeah,
Wow,
this isn't about me, but you just want to
But listen, I made the beginning about me. You gotta do that a little bit. But no, I mean this. You're right, Matt. This performance, it really it's as much as they shoot themselves in the foot. You also come away with the impression that wow, this team might be able to win a game when they, play a quarter on their heads. Like that's just feel like that they're that kind of team. Where they can make things happen. Even when they don't play their best game. But at the same time, better opponents will be on their way.
Yes.
Better opponents are coming. Next week against the Rams will mark one of those times where that occurs. And so, yeah, this is a team that has to obviously cut down on the mistakes. But when they do, the host of weapons that they have in the passing game is really making them hard for teams to defend. It is through 2 games, JC, we have not seen a team actually line up. And I know we haven't it's far from seeing the best 2 defense in the league, but we haven't seen anybody line up and challenge the Bucs conceptually to challenge their offense yet. The Rams did it last year, different coordinator. We'll see if they can do it again this year, but we have not seen that through 2 games so far.
Yeah, the plethora of talent. I mean, you go anywhere you want to go on the ball with Evans and Gronk, and you start working in. OJ Howard got some action tonight. He made a big 15-yard grab. And it's just the depth of this team. Tyler Johnson was out there. So there's it's going to be really hard. I think the Rams are going to present a good challenge. As you said, these aren't world-beating defenses. You're talking about the Cowboys and Falcons, and it's going to take an A game. But I think, these past 2 victories are really good for this Bucs team headed into such tough opponents because of what they can learn about and what they can improve on going into next week, because there's definitely a lot of good to take away, but there's definitely some bad, some costly penalties again that at the end of the half put the Falcons in field goal range. Some plays some missed tackling, and some poor coverage design too by Todd Bowles. So, it's going to be a much bigger challenge next week. I know Carlton Davis left the game, came back in, had that hamstring. We'll see, how that progresses throughout the week. But the receiving core they have in Woods, Kupp, Jefferson, I mean, they can beat you in a variety of ways as well. And it's going to take everybody on this defense playing at the same level and the same communication to really pull out a win next week on the road cross country on Sunday night.
Yeah, 11 penalties in the week 1 game, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, 9 penalties for 83 yards in this game. So that has been a huge issue, a point of emphasis. They started the season last year the same way. They did get it together and ended up fixing things and being one of the least penalty-ridden teams over most of the latter half of last season. So you hope that the same thing is kind of in store for the Bucs this season. But even if you look, you were mentioning just kind of self-inflicted stuff. Last time it was a lot of drops in the week 1 game. This week it was different sorts of mistakes, right? The penalties were part of it. We saw the Ryan Jensen personal foul penalty knocked the Bucs back early in the game, and then Donovan Smith at 3rd and 20. Brady's trying to find something down the field. 3rd and 20 when you're just outside the red zone got to be one of the toughest play calls. There's just not even much space to work with in terms of being able to be beyond the sticks. So, and Brady's holding the ball a little bit, and you put yourself in that situation, and Donovan Smith gives up the sack, and so. That was an ugly part of the game and was the only Bucs red zone failure in this game. They were 4 or 5 as they remain really good in that area of the field. But those kind of things, if you can eliminate those against the Rams, there's no reason why in any game this season that this team can't be that kind of juggernaut. Again, conceptually, we'll see what other defenses drop to kind of stop them. But offensively, it feels like the Bucs have a lot of answers they didn't have before. We've talked about the running back thing ad nauseum a little bit. Defensively, though, going through cornerbacks at the rate that the Bucs are going through, Matt, like you saw it from the sideline. I mean, you saw it when Jamel Dean came out, came back in, came out again then and was getting evaluated. Ross Cockrell played a lot of this game. This was just not they did not have – Carlton Davis came out of the game at some point. Mike Edwards is playing in the slot. Obviously, that paid dividends at the end of the game. But this is kind of musical chairs at the cornerback position, and that's not where you want to be going in to play Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods.
No, not at all. And originally I thought too, like maybe Atlanta would try to pick on Jamel Dean for the way the Cowboys did in week 1. But I guess you can't really pick on a guy if he's not going to be on the field too much. it's concerning. You're pretty much just spinning a wheel and being like, all right, well, D Delaney, it's your turn. You're gonna be playing in this one. You can't go a full season playing your third or fourth string corners. And I mean, we saw Cockrell was so today. I mean, he got beat by Calvin Ridley for a touchdown, but when you have him going against one of the better receivers in the NFL, you can kind of expect that to happen. I think that's why moving forward, there's only so much you can do with the personnel that you have at corner, unless they want to go out and sign a Richard Sherman. You kind of have to just deal with the cards that are handed to you, So hopefully Carlton Davis can stay healthy, and hopefully Jamel Dean, the issues that he's going through, can bounce back and be healthy as well too. But I think there needs a little bit. The secondary needs to be helped out by this pass rush a little bit. I mean, there's another game where it's almost crazy because you have two non-mobile quarterbacks, and Brady is rushing for 6 yards to get a first down. Matt Ryan keeps the ball and gets a 2-point conversion and escaped out of the pocket a lot more than I think anyone expected. Even avoided Devin White had a great pass rush where he on the 4th down play where he got right up in Matt Ryan's grill. But there was another one earlier in the game where he was able to sidestep Devin White and still move around. So it was crazy to see that go on. It's a little concerning what we're seeing with the secondary just based on the injuries alone. But I'm looking at that pass rush to try to bail this team out going into the next game, which they're going to really need going up against an extremely talented receivers group, almost a similar situation to playing a good receivers group like the Cowboys. So almost back to square one.
And they're kind of bailed out too with Russell Gage being in and out of the game too with injury, hampered by that. So I mean, you're most likely not having that situation going into next week with Kupp and Woods out there. So there definitely needs to be able to find a solution as soon as possible to shore up that back end, whether it's Richard Sherman or in-house, people start getting a little healthier. Maybe Pierre Desir can come up after a week and a half of understanding the playbook. But I don't know, John, what do you think they're going to be able to do to slow down this passing attack next week?
Yeah, I don't know that anything they can do is going to help for this upcoming week. I think it's the more is playing. Is Jamel Dean healthy enough, and Mike Edwards needing to play the whole game, which I believe that he will. If Jamel Dean, especially if he's down, Mike Edwards will play a lot. There's going to be mismatches, but you need Carlton Davis to be healthy. You need Mike Edwards. Those two guys you got to have playing. Obviously Winfield, obviously Whitehead. I think those four got to be out there. Defensively, it's going to be completely about. It's not just mano-a-mano. That's honestly not always the problem when the Bucs passing attack is getting picked apart. It's there's layers to this thing, right? Like it's not just that. And so, there are challenges I think that are ahead of them in this game. I don't think all of them are player versus player challenges, although those will obviously be some of them. I think a lot of them are going to be conceptually, how does this defense change some of what they do? Because a lot of what they do and the way they play is how Sean McVay is torn apart this defense so many times before. Instead, when Jared Goff would turn the ball over the last two meetings against Todd Bowles' defense, he turned the ball over so much and gave the Bucs chances. And even 2 years ago, the Bucs won in a very high-scoring game. But if Goff doesn't turn the ball over, Bowles has said straight up, that was not one of our better games, even though they had a lot of turnovers and sacks in that game. If now you've got a better quarterback running that offense that's already shredded the Bucs twice. The one good thing I'll say is that Bowles, I think, is going to take it seriously because he's been beaten in this system before. So that's one thing I think you could see some changes and different things from him that you don't typically see from a Todd Bowles defense. Let's get to game balls here. We got to knock them out because we've got Casey Hudson waiting to jump onto the show here and give her game balls and kind of hand these out. But game balls presented by Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Okay, let's talk about this now, Matt Matera. Offense, defense. If you want to throw a special teamer in there, go for it. Who gets your game balls?
Offensively, I'm going to try. Offensively, you can pick from a number of guys, so I'm not going to take the obvious person on defense. For offense, I will, or at least one of the obvious. Mike Evans, huge bounce-back game, led the team in receiving yards at 75, 2 touchdowns, set the tone for this team, got the first reception of the game. He's fine. All is well. The offense is great. Mike Evans is great. This is an excellent bounce-back game for him. His second touchdown reception, I thought, was really awesome. It was just a great play overall. The execution was perfect right then and there. So great to see Mike Evans back on track. For defense, we all know who the obvious answer is. But I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction. I'm going to give a shout out to Levante David. I thought he played a really solid game.
Yeah.
Was hitting very hard. I said in most impressive, he was the hardest hitter on the defensive side of the ball in this game. He broke up a pass in the first half. It was going to, I can't pronounce his name, but he was number 17 on the Falcons. I'm not even going to bother to try to
Olamide Zacchaeus.
Yes, Zacchaeus. And it was like one of those just great timing plays where he broke it up and just smashed right into the guy. Had a very nice open field tackle. He was second on the team in tackles in this game. Just one of those quintessential Levante David, all over the place, flying around the field and just involved in a number of plays. So I thought that was really good to see from Levante. Special teams wasn't great, but I'll throw a shout out to Andrew Adams downing that ball at the 4-yard line. Nicely done.
Yeah, for sure. JC, who you got? Offense, defense, a special teamer if you want.
I'm going to give it to my boy, Tom Brady again for the second week in a row, just killing it, crushing it. 5 touchdowns, ties a franchise record with 5 touchdown game, has 2 5-touchdown games in franchise history for the Buccaneers. And he was just out there slinging it, playing, backyard football, finding Evans twice, finding Godwin once, finding his buddy Gronk for 2 tutties. There's not enough you can say about what Tom Brady does and what he brings to this team. Oh, and by the way, 499 yards away from the all-time passing record, which puts him on pace to probably break that record week 4 in Foxborough against the Patriots.
It feels like it'll probably be on the table in that game if he has a semi-productive outing against the Rams. Some of it will be, can these guys around him, can they keep the ball, right? Can they maintain possession of the ball? I think they've been out-possessed, it feels like, in both games in terms of the other thing is I wondered if the Bucs defense would get off the field sooner at some points. Early in the game they did, and the Bucs were obviously rolling up points on offense, but their defense stays on the field so long because they allow so many short completions and they allow so many teams to convert short third downs. And so they're out there for these huge drives and the offense doesn't get as many plays. Then the Bucs offense, I think somebody asked Arians after the game, I think the longest offensive scoring drive was like 3.5 minutes or something. It's like they just go right down the field, boom, boom, boom. And then, so in some ways he needs more plays and more opportunities to get the yardage increases. He should have been well over 400, maybe 500 in the last game against Dallas. And so, but we'll see. Those yardage increases will be something to watch, obviously, on the backs of our minds against that Rams game. Gentlemen, great insight from both of you. Very good thoughts.
Look at my defense?
No, I don't think so. I think we just moved. No,
You're just picking me out. Defense.
Go ahead.
I got to give it to the man who called his own game earlier today. Ndamukong Suh with a sack on Matt Ryan. He literally called it out on Twitter Sphere. If you're on the Twitter Sphere, go check that out. He said he was going to meet Matt Ryan. He did so with a big sack, crucial moment that forced them to punt. So I'm going to give him my defensive game ball. And then speaking of the word punt, let's give it Opinion again, who had a beautiful 57, 2 punts down inside the 20. Just guys doing his job. I will take all the blame for saying this guy should have taken a pay cut in the offseason. He's done extremely well. So there you go. Brady, Sue, and Pinion for my game balls.
Yeah, good choices across the board there. Good shout out for Pinion. Wow, 2 defensive game balls and nobody's picking Mike Edwards. Bold strategies. Thank you, JC. Thank you, Matt. Good insight. Hey, folks, head on over to Whiskey Wings. I'm telling you, this is the place to be. You need a little post-game snack in your life. Go on over to Whiskey Wings Sports Bar and Grill. Great atmosphere for watching the game. Great post-game atmosphere as well. Got the outdoor bar going on. It's clean. It's a new facility, man. They haven't even been open there a year in Temple Terrace. It's a great site, great looking, great food, man. I've had that chicken sandwich. I think it's even bigger in person. It's terrific stuff. Their wings, huge wings. I hate when these places give you these tiny little wings. I mean, I'm a 235-pound guy, so maybe that relates to it. But I hate when they give you these tiny wings. And so I love the fact that Whiskey Wings will fill you up with this food. It's great stuff. Head on over to Whiskey Wings. Check out their specials, too. They got specials going all week long and awesome stuff to take the family out to eat as well. So Whiskey Wings in Temple Terrace. They got a location in St. Pete, a couple other locations as well. Make sure you check them out this week if you're looking to get some dinner. All right, Scott Reynolds back on the show. We're joined by Casey Hudson on the show as well. Casey, we're excited to get you on the Pewter Report postgame podcast after you've been a feature member of the pregame show. Now you get to come on the postgame show and see how we do things on the game ball section of this show. Before we get to your game balls offensively and defensively, what stood out to you and impressed you the most from the Bucs? And maybe if something concerned you, give that a shout as well.
I can't think of a concern just yet, but maybe if I could be a little forward is to say that I was psyched that I was right about Mike Evans having a lot more. So when I see that momentum generating, I was like, yes, something's going right. Predictions. The one thing I will say is not hearing much about AB getting many throws, many looks, and then Chris Godwin. I thought we were going to see, I don't know, a lot more efficiency out of him. Not that he wasn't fighting for it. Obviously, they kind of cued it on him a bit more too. So I'm psyched that Mike Evans got a lot of production. I thought we were going to see a lot more out of AB, and then the run game started to kind of life a bit, and it was Leonard Fournette, as I was kind of thinking as well, that he was wanted to gem that offense for them. So the other thing is that I never imagined that Mike Edwards would be the guy who really pulls it through for the Bucs today. Those 2 pick sixes were obviously huge, but for him to get it both times and for people to have a lot to say against him being that guy who has to step up in that next man mentality defense that we always talk about, that was pretty huge.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the keys of this game, in my opinion, Casey. You're right. The fact that he was able to pick up the slack, especially with the injuries that the Bucs have been dealing with, I think that's a huge part of this. We don't talk about that enough, but Mike Edwards has kind of patiently waited his turn, right? Like, here's a guy who played a ton as a rookie, and when now he's gotten better and he's seen his playing time decrease. That is very rare in the NFL for that to happen. Yet he said all the right things. He's done all the right things. Been very impressed by him so far. Casey, let's get your game balls offensively, defensively, special teams. If you observed anything, game balls presented by Manscaped, your balls will thank you. What are your thoughts so far?
I have to go with Evans for the offensive game ball for sure. For him to finally score against the Falcons and kind of be a lot more present in this game, there's no way I couldn't give it to him. As for the defense, this might be a little bit of a sneaker, but I kind of want to pass it off to Carlton Davis. He happens to be in the right place in the right time and helps contribute to his teammates. Like, I don't remember specifically what the play was, but he had a lot of specific contributions versus the Cowboys where he was in the right place at the right time and helped kind of level up the entire defense. And same thing today. Mike Edwards in the press conference just now even mentioned the fact that if it wasn't for him kind of popping the ball up, that he wouldn't have caught it and been able to take it into the end zone. So I gotta give the defensive ball to Carlton Davis.
Yeah, no, he's been invaluable to this Bucs team, I think, this season already, especially with all the injuries. As much as they might have been carved up in this game, I don't think a lot of those completions were on Carlton Davis. Definitely some penalties in this one that he'll need to clean up that are uncharacteristic of him. But, I guess he does get called for a lot of them. I don't know how many he actually commits.
Well, I mean, John, when you think about it, like he had the face mask, right? There was that call. But the other one was just a good football play. And it's unfortunate that in modern day NFL, they're robbing great defensive players of great moments on defense because they've decided to really, take this game and if you hit a player too hard, you get a penalty now, whether it's roughing the passer, whether it's a defenseless receiver, whatever that means. I mean, just let the guys play. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. We don't need all that.
Getting a lot more sensitive, that's for sure.
Yeah, we definitely don't need that. And it was a clean hit, and it was a shame that he got penalized for that. And it really, Carl Davis got to be the most over penalized guy in the league. Like, just feels like every time there's a call, he does get some, but half of these calls every year just feels like the refs just pick on him a lot for sure. But Casey, good observations. Thank you for jumping in here. We appreciate it. Great stuff with the Manscaped game balls and handing those out. Scott, we got to get to ours with over here with Manscaped and try and get our thoughts here on how this game went. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll let you go first, John.
All right. Okay. Offensively, we can obviously overthink this one and not pick Tom Brady, but I'm not going to do that. Shout out to a lot of guys who played very well in terms of the Bucs' weapons in this game, and definitely parts of the offensive line as well. But Tom Brady, to me, yeah, absolutely. What he's doing to start the season is crazy. We're seeing Tom Brady with the talent from last year, but with a way better understanding of what's going on, and also a system that just is way better than it was at the beginning of last year. No question. They can say Tom Brady didn't know all the plays at the beginning of last year as many times as they want, but the reality is the Bucs offense has changed. It's different than what it was. It's better than what it was. It's more efficient. There's more answers. And Brady is really picking teams apart because he's making the right decision. He has the right decisions at his disposal where he did not a lot of the time last year.
Yeah.
And that's made a huge difference. So clearly Brady on offense, to me, his performance to start the season has been awe-inspiring, to be honest. It's crazy, crazy to watch. On defense, obviously it's Mike Edwards. And so we don't really need to overthink it per se. But I'll say this, Scott. Rakeem Nunez-Roches' fourth or third down stop was a massive moment in the game.
That was big. There's no
all
doubt
the
about
momentum swinging, huge field position on the line, and he busts through the line for it. Wasn't even just like, oh, he dropped him for a half a yard loss. They probably wouldn't have gone for it anyway, but it's a 3-yard loss.
He
That was
buried that guy.
I mean, no, uncontested in the backfield.
Yeah,
just a huge play. To me, though, that play stood out as one of the turning points in this game. And as much as Edwards obviously deserves it with the 2 picks, and really Edwards also, I don't remember or recall him getting beat a lot in this game either in coverage, but I think that play by Rakeem Nunez-Roches was a huge moment in the game.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's fun to have a game like this where there's so many different game balls to give out, right? It's everybody contributing to this win, multiple players on offense and defense. I think that's where the Buccaneers have evolved to. So, in giving careful consideration to my game balls presented by Manscaped, your balls will thank you. John, I'm going to go with the guy that well, I mean, let's face it, he is a paid spokesperson for Manscaped. So why not give it to Gronk, right? This is a guy that when you go back to the last 3 games, not only has he scored 2 touchdowns early, but he's also tied an NFL record for the most consecutive games, 3, with 2 touchdowns or more. But more importantly, he's getting the Buccaneers off to good starts. John, before your time covering the Buccaneers were notoriously slow starters, whether it was under Josh Freeman or Josh McCown or Jameis Winston. This team would shoot itself in the foot or just start slow and have to play catch up, and it just was never good enough. Now we're seeing the Buccaneers get off to some hot starts, and I think that has really helped because when the Bucs have had these lulls in the game, at least they're not falling behind. It's getting to be a close game. We saw the Falcons tighten it to within 3 points, but these fast starts are really allowing the Buccaneers, whether it's winning the Super Bowl, whether it's jumping out to a big lead against Dallas and hanging on, or whether it's keeping the Falcons at bay enough to where they can come in back in the fourth quarter and finish them. I think Gronk is really doing a good job in helping this offense get on the scoreboard first, not with field goals, but with touchdowns.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say with Gronk, I'm just so impressed by him after the catch. Like,
yes,
I think
he looks like the Gronk of old. He really does.
He's just powering
not
through
an old
people.
Gronk.
No, he doesn't. He's powering through people. He's making yardage count after the catch. I mean, the touchdown we saw it on earlier in the game. There was like a 5-yard completion, and he turned it into a 9.5 yards because those yardage. People hear me say Harper all the time and probably get sick of it, but I think those yards are such an important factor. It's one of the reasons why I value Godwin's game so much because he always seems to find those yards. I just think that he's played he's played literally as well as you could want him to play so far.
No doubt. And I would say on defense, it's got to be Mike Edwards, right? I mean, this cat is in the right place at the right time. He is an X factor, a Y factor, a Z factor. He's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G factor. He's the whole alphabet factor. Get this guy on the field, keep him on the field. And I think that they're doing that out of necessity right now because he will play the nickel corner against the Rams. And John, we should probably, as we wrap up the show, talk about this Rams game because it's interesting. We'll get into the in-depth previews later this week, but it's interesting because they had a test today, right, against the Colts. They won 27-24, but it was a game that was tight kind of throughout. And we saw, Cooper Kupp have one of those Cooper Kupp days, 9 catches, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he is going to be the marked man, but he's not the only guy, right? There's Robert Woods. You've got in the backfield, Sony Michel had 46 yards. Darrell Henderson had 53 yards and a touchdown. Stafford, 2 touchdowns and a pick. So it's a high explosive, high scoring type of offense. It's no surprise. The score today with the Rams winning 27-24, John, that was the same score the Bucs lost by last year, 27-24. If you remember that game, they were down a corner because Jamel Dean got the concussion and missed, I believe, most of the game, or the second half at least, in that game. So they were a little shorthanded there. And I just think this is a game with the Bucs defense not playing nearly as well as they did down the stretch in the playoffs. Like you said at the top of this podcast, John, this is the Bucs defense that we saw at the beginning of the season last year, not making enough plays, not keeping teams out of the end zone enough, allowing a team that I still don't think is very good in the Atlanta Falcons, to put 25 points on the board. This game, my initial thoughts go back to 2019, not 2020. 2019, when the Bucs went out to LA and they won 55-40 in a crazy shootout. The Bucs scored 24 points in the fourth quarter. The Rams scored 20 points. And Ndamukong Suh finished it off against his former team with a scoop and score. And that was an absolute shootout. And I think that we're going to see that type of game, not the 27-24 that we saw last year. I think it's going to be a game that's in the 40s. Wow. So I think you're going to see two teams in the old Wild West just slinging the rock all over the place. This is going to be a fantasy football owner's dream if you have Rams or Bucs start them next week, because I think there's going to be points aplenty on the field.
Interesting. I think it'll be closer to 27-24, to be honest. But I'll say this, Scott. If the Bucs offensive points, not like short fields because of defensive turnovers and things like that, but if offensively, for real, they put up 40-plus points, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. And I know it's crazy to say it off week 3 observations, but this is Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and a really good defense. That would be a really amazing result if that were the case. But I say, this offense obviously has a lot of answers and a lot of ability to do things like that, even against tough opponents. Huge test for them. The mistakes, though, they can't be beating themselves. The Rams are way too good for that. They're way too well coached. They have not gone up against a team like that, coached like that from the top down yet this season. So a lot on the line. We'll obviously evaluate that. This week, there'll be lots going on the show. I want to shout out 2 things real quick, Scott. Tom Brady today led the Bucs in rushing expected points added per play. 1 carry, 6 yards on a third down conversion, was the most valuable rush of the day by expected points added for the Bucs. So Tom Brady, dual threat quarterback, as we all saw. But seriously, the knee, obviously, I think it's changing some things this year. We've seen him throw 2 touchdowns now on bootlegs this season. The second to Gronk that he's thrown this season, he threw today on their second touchdown of the game for the Bucs. It's a different player in that regard in terms of he can do some things off platform.
Tom Brady still making business decisions, though, not trying to be like John Elway back in the day and going for the goal line, doing the helicopter spin. And
none of that.
No, not in week 2. You're not making those type of plays.
You don't play however many consecutive games.
Slide, baby, slide, business decision. I love it.
Right. So he's adding some things with his legs, and it's adding some things to the offense's results. So excited to see kind of where that goes. Obviously, it'll never be a huge part of it, but if it can be a wrinkle that teams have to prepare for, it's going to make things very interesting in some of these better matchups. So make sure you're subscribed to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Hit the like button on our videos. Help us out as much as you can. Send other people that way toward Pewter Report TV to check out the podcast, to check out the live in-game streams that we do. We appreciate a lot of you for hanging with us throughout the day. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be breaking down this game more in depth, talking a lot about how this performance went.
John, we're going to have a Leonard segment tomorrow, aren't we?
Oh, we are, Scott. We really I honestly wonder going into games sometimes, will we get good material? Or will we have to reach for the Leonard segment? But actually Leonard usually happens on Wednesday when I have the ability to bring the clips up for the all 22. So we don't get flagged.
So we'll do it on Wednesday.
Yes. Wednesday, Leonard will be in there. Yeah. We've got a couple moments. And he's a content provider, man. You just got to give him credit at this point.
And listen, you got to give him credit too, because Leonard Fournette, 52 yards, 11 carries, and caught all 4 of his targets for 4 catches, 24 yards. So he was productive. And thanks to Chris Godwin, he didn't have a fumble. So
that's right. Well, he didn't have a lost fumble, we should say.
Well, no, it wasn't lost. It was a fumble, but it wasn't a lost.
It wasn't
fumble
a lost fumble, right?
because the Bucs did recover. So
that's right. No, appreciate this $5 super chat, Brian Shaw. Appreciate you always being in here and giving us the great stream thumbs up there. Definitely appreciate that. I am going to go maybe eat some food because I've been streaming for a little while here.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'll eat something and then let's get working. We got post-game content to get up. Make sure you're checking out pewterreport.com. We got most disappointing, most impressive game recap coming up there. 2-point conversion is coming at some point from Scott in the next 12 hours or so. Who knows? And then
listen, I'm taking
tomorrow
your questions.
Ton of content.
Bucs Monday mailbag comes out tomorrow. So we've got a couple questions that I'm going to answer. But if you have any more, use the hashtag PR mailbag on Twitter, and I will do my best to put those in the Bucs Monday mailbag for tomorrow morning.
There you go. Perfect. Beautiful stuff. Thanks so much to y'all for tuning in for another Bucs victory. For the whole Pewter Report crew, I'm John Ledyard. Have a great night, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.